Located in Zuni, Bethany Presbyterian Church has been a pillar of the community since its founding. Its story began when Zuni residents requested the establishment of a church, and in May 1923, Reverend S.K. Amurian from Norfolk Presbytery arrived. Originally, Amurian fulfilled Zuni's request by holding Sunday school classes at Maccabee Hall, but the fledgling congregation quickly outgrew that location. By 1924, the Presbytery commissioned the founding of Zuni's first church. Funds were needed, and Amurian assisted by singing, playing music, speaking of his Armenian homeland, and other creative fundraisers. The women of Zuni fundraised as well, selling meals to peanut workers and selling goods such as rolled oysters, peanuts, ice cream, baked goods, and handcrafted items. Fundraising was conducted far and wide, including the city of Portsmouth and at the dock of the ferry to Norfolk.
Throughout the history, there's been a lot. I mean, a group of farmers basically put the church together, and worked together. One of the cool things that they did is you were talking about fundraising, they had something called God's Little Acre, where they had a piece of their farmland that they had designated those crops would go to fund the church. And so a bunch of the original members did that for a long period of time, and that was a big piece of how this put together.
On September 25th, 1924, the cornerstone was laid, drawing a crowd of 900. Within a year, construction was completed. The church building is an example of late 19th and early 20th century classical revival style and is a brick structure with a gable roof clad in asphalt shingles. The windows feature limestone sills and soldier coarse brick lintels. The central entrance is sheltered by a projecting open vestibule with a rounded arch opening, and there's an interior brick chimney at the south end of the building. An addition was built in 1996.
This main part of the sanctuary was the original church. The wings were added, and then the fellowship hall and all that was added in the 90s. So the church, as it has been, has grown a couple of times.
Each pastor has impacted the church's history, encouraging and supporting their growing community in unique ways. Reverend W.R. Bueller worked with local youth to build fish ponds. Reverend Harry B. Christie acquired the land for the Zuni Presbyterian Center. The fellowship hall was built in the 1980s under the leadership of Reverend Stephen N. Weed. And in 1992, Reverend John P. Hartman modernized the church with the installation of computers and sound system.
So one of the things which was fun about the 100-year anniversary is that the 4 living former pastors all were here. And they all had a role in that celebration. And probably the one that everybody was most excited about is the oldest of that group, but he was also here during the time of the largest congregation, Steve Weed. And he just is a phenomenal leader and storyteller. He laid a legacy. At that point, they had church softball leagues and all of those kinds of things that were going on, and people look back on him fondly. At times when we've needed more space.
The current pastor, Reverend Pete Atkinson, has deep ties to Isle of Wight County and continues the work of his predecessors.
My grandfather was the assistant superintendent of schools in Isle of Wight County in the late 70s and 80s, and he lived in Windsor. So I grew up, one of the things that drew me here was to kind of feel out those roots in some ways. We still do a lot within the community, trying to outreach with different things. One of the things we've done most recently is we've started something called the Blackwater River Players, which is a kids ministry of theater. We're trying now, partnering with other organizations to try to as our members get older, and to kind of work together so that some of that energy can become more than what we can do ourselves.
While Bethany Presbyterian has seen some hardship, the church always seeks to help its community. In 1940, Zuni was flooded and the church became a distribution center for typhoid shots. And in 1999, Hurricane Floyd devastated the area, and the church was one of the places accepting checks for the Isle of Wight Flood Relief Fund. On November 20th, 1963, a fire broke out in the nearby silo, creating hazardous conditions for the church and surrounding community. The 125-foot-high silo was part of a peanut plant established in 1946. Owned by the Zuni Storage Corporation, the plant was leased to the Columbian Peanut Factory at the time of the fire. According to news coverage, concrete flew through the air and an explosion knocked people to the ground. Residents in nearby homes were evacuated and firemen came from Petersburg, Waverly, Suffolk, Franklin, and Carsville to fight the flames.
We joke that the engineers from across the rivers and bridges came and they had ways to think about putting it out, and the guys around here were like, no, don't do that. And then they did that, and that was like to put a pipe down or whatever to let the air, something like to get to it, and that just ignited it. And so it was kind of one of those kind of things where the local country folks had a greater insight into the way this fire was working.
The fire that began in late November was still smoldering by the 30th of December. The damage to the plant, as well as the destruction of 50,000 bags of peanuts, totaled about $1 million in losses. Despite its proximity, Bethany Presbyterian was undamaged, and the church now owns the silo and surrounding property.
It's the kind of the thing we say to people that don't know how to get here. We say, look for the big silo, and we're right next to it. So in that way, it's a landmark you can see from the road.
Bethany Presbyterian Church still perseveres today and remains focused on connecting with the community.
We're kind of at a place where we want to try everything that we can, drawing people to help and be a part of it.